Well, well, Fabio Wardley does it again. He gets the stoppage win over Joseph Parker in the 11th round of their heavyweight contest. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down for you the tactical and technical details that allowed Wardley to beat Parker. We're absolutely going to be talking about that controversial stoppage, all before discussing everything else and where next for both of these men. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Whew, well, that was an exciting heavyweight fight, and I thought it might be, I really did. It was extremely entertaining, it ebbed and flowed, there was back and forth from both men. There was moments where Parker was in the ascendancy, there was moments when Wardley was in the ascendancy. And overall, it was just a really great heavyweight scrap. I predicted Parker to win, but I absolutely said and thought that this fight was not a foregone conclusion, that Fabio Wardley was absolutely in this contest. And actually, Fabio Wardley performed, I think, the best I've ever seen him perform in this fight. I'm going to tell you exactly what he added into the mix that I'd seen him go away from in other fights. There was a couple of things he did that were incredibly important to him getting this win. In fact, they were instrumental to him getting this win. Right before I jump in, thanks to all of you who joined me for the live. It was fantastic. There was loads of you in, and it was a great group of people, as ever. I always enjoy those live streams. So if you missed this one, make sure you join us for the next one. Make sure you smash a like on this video if you do like it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And make sure you get your comment in the comments section below. What did you make of this fight, and what do you think each fighter should do next? Now, coming into this fight, it was a big risk for Joseph Parker taking the fight against Fabio Wardley. He was on the cusp of getting his Alexander Usyk fight, seemingly. He'd been waiting for quite a long time for that matchup, and having been passed over in favor of Daniel Dubois so Usyk could go and become the undisputed champion at heavyweight again, Parker was sat waiting for his mandatory shot with the WBO. And I guess he felt he was waiting for too long, because he decided to take this fight against Fabio Wardley, a very dangerous fight, but nonetheless, he was a heavy favorite going into this matchup. For Fabio Wardley, he'd been comprehensively outboxed by Justice Hooney before he absolutely iced him, and everybody was saying Hooney completely outboxed Wardley. If Wardley goes in there and fights that way against Parker, Parker's a much bigger puncher than Hooney, he's going to get absolutely destroyed. And that was definitely where my mind went in the end when I was thinking about this pick. I thought that Parker would be able to do a much better job in this fight than he did in the end. But I also want to give Wardley huge credit here. He did some things, as I say, that he went away from before. And I'm going to break those things down for you now. So in the build-up to this fight, in my tactical breakdown, I showed you the three main right-hand setups that Fabio Wardley uses. He uses these three setups. He lands a single big right hand, a powerful shot, and then he goes into what I call his chaos mode. This is the mode he goes into when he gets you hurt or when he's been hurt himself and he needs to get you off him. It's like his Super Saiyan special superpower mode. AJ used to have something a bit like this as well, where he would just absolutely blitz you, throwing huge shots. And it's irresistible because Fabio Wardley is a big puncher, but also Fabio Wardley has fantastic conditioning. He can throw big punch after big punch and still not be completely gassed and punched out. It's very impressive. And outside of the technical and tactical stuff, there's some amazing things that make Fabio Wardley a great fighter. I will talk to you about those in a minute. But right now, on the tactical side of things, I didn't actually see too many of those right-hand setups. I saw him attempt them a few times, but Parker was doing a really good job of dipping underneath Fabio Wardley's right hand when he was letting it go. But there was a setup that Wardley used in this fight that is a classic setup that Ben Davison gets most of his fighters using, in particular his heavyweight fighters. It's something I've broken down for you before. It's something that me and Jamie from Boxing Life talked about when we did our Moses Atama breakdown. But it's the Ben Davison body jab setup. And as I say, most of his fighters use this. It was something I was surprised. I hadn't seen Fabio Wardley really using it too much. I guess it's something he kind of got away from in his other fights. But in this fight, he used it perfectly. And you'll watch this fight, and you'll see the moment where Wardley managed to finally catch Parker, and it all comes from those body jabs. We've seen Atalma doing it in most of his fights. He'll start, especially when he's fighting fellow southpaws, he'll start with the jab to the body. He always starts jabbing to the body and the fight. Then he starts feinting. He starts getting you to drop your guard. And then eventually he steps in after the feint and starts landing his straight left hand, or if you're an orthodox fighter, his straight right hand, the backhand. And it was something that AJ was doing in his fights as well, in particular in that Ngannou fight. It was how he scored his enormous knockout of Francis Ngannou. Feint, jabbing low, then feinting low, bringing their hands down, stepping in, firing that right hand. And you'll see the shot that got Joseph Parker going, that got him really hurt in that 11th round. It was a feint downstairs after lots and lots of body work throughout the fight from Fabio Wardley. He feinted downstairs, and then he chucked the big right hand in and caught Joseph Parker. Now look, there was other things Fabio Wardley did well too. You know, he had a lot more success in this one just leading off than he normally does. Typically, for me, Fabio Wardley waits for you to make a mistake and then he capitalizes on it. In this fight, however, I really was disappointed with Joseph Parker's defense, and in particular, it was something I pointed out before the fight I was worried that I've seen Joseph Parker doing before, and he sits in the pocket too long. He stays in the pocket for too long. He doesn't use lateral movement well enough anymore. Now, you could say that's down to the added weight. He did weigh 262 pounds, I think it was, for this one, a few pounds down from the 267 he weighed against Martin Bacole, but still about 20 pounds heavier than the 242, 240 he used to weigh when he was more in his physical prime. But I said before the fight that Hooney did things better than Parker, certain aspects. I think his defense is much better than Parker's. I think he's much faster than Parker. His hands are much quicker. His defensive acumen, when you're in the open ring from Hooney, is absolutely brilliant. The other thing Hooney did really well, I showed you in my breakdown that Parker wasn't doing well enough, was level changing. Hooney was constantly entering low, finishing high. And it was something that Parker was just really struggling to do. And honestly, in there, to me, his feet didn't have enough mobility. Again, you can put this down to the extra weight, but also Wardley was the more athletic man there. He was the sharper and faster man in there for me. And Parker simply really struggled to close the gap. He found it very difficult to get into Wardley's range and stay there. He'd either land a single and then press the action and they end up clinching, or he would just be pulling backwards, trying to stay away from Wardley's power shots and his own work. But in general, Wardley was just absolutely fantastic in there. Another moment that really stood out for me was in the 10th round, when he slipped Joseph Parker's jab and he fired in a beautiful counter uppercut. Again, this is a variation on what he normally does. He often will work off your jab, but this was a setup I hadn't seen too many times from him. I definitely think in camp, they've gone and they've worked on specific things. That slip outside, that Parker jab, the right uppercut, it was an absolutely beautiful combination. And again, it allows him to go into that chaos mode. Other things that are worth a mention are Wardley was able to score and win rounds by throwing the right hook to the body. That was another great combination for him. And also defensively, I have to say, I was really impressed with how he rode the shots, how he slipped and how he moved and made himself safe again. This guy is much better than people give him credit for. His boxing skills have definitely improved. But look, this is where we've got to talk about the stoppage, because I talk about that chaos mode he goes into. To be fair to Parker, Parker was surviving it. He was definitely hurt. He was definitely wobbled. You could see he was struggling to stay on his feet at times. But yet he was staying on his feet. He didn't take a knee at any point. And whilst he looked really hurt, he was still in there. He was still moving with the shots. He was still holding his gloves up. Now, Howard Foster's got previous with this. Howard Foster is the referee from the controversial stoppage in Froch Groves 1. Howard Foster is the referee from the controversial stoppage in the Whittaker-Cameron rematch. We see it time and time again. This guy stops fights a bit too early. And the problem with it is, he might be bang on. He might actually be stopping it before someone gets hurt. But the thing is, when Parker got stopped just then, he wasn't even landing clean punches, Wardley. They weren't clean shots. Parker, they were missing. And Wardley was out on his feet. He looked absolutely gassed. There's absolutely a possibility that Parker rides that out and then goes and finishes him. I'm not saying Parker wasn't hurt. I'm not saying Wardley wasn't about to finish him. But I am saying that we don't know. And because of Howard Foster finishing this fight prematurely, that's a massive problem. And this guy does this time and time again, and he's just not learned from his mistakes. I don't understand when he's going to learn from his mistakes, or maybe he's not being told their mistakes. Maybe the board is saying, yeah, Howard, great stoppage, mate. You saved him there. The reality is the work he does, it causes too much doubt, and I'm not a fan. I don't think it's acceptable. There's probably more examples of it. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but those three instantly come to my mind. Were they deserving winners, the guys that won? Yes. Were they likely going to knock their opponent out? I think that was a good chance, but we didn't know, and he doesn't allow that opportunity for things to play out. Imagine if Tyson Fury hadn't been allowed to get off the canvas when he got knocked down by Wilder in their first fight. We've seen many a bloody war where fighters look like they're absolutely down and out on their feet, and somehow they come back. Fabio Wardley's a great example of this. You saw it over and over again tonight where he looked hurt. He rode out with the shots, he got to the ropes, and he clinched and he made himself safe again. There was every chance that Parker could have found his way out of that. Maybe he was going to get stopped, but maybe he wasn't. You guys get what I'm saying. So look, Wardley's a deserved winner. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the win. I'm just saying that you've made doubt now, Howard Foster, and you keep damn doing this, and it pisses me off. This is A-class boxing. We can't be having stoppages that are early. You've got to give them every single opportunity to stay in the fight and every single opportunity to Fabio Wardley to prove that he's going to win emphatically. But look, there's other things we have to say about Fabio Wardley here, and there's a couple of them I said before the fight, but I think what defines Fabio Wardley as a fighter, because I only want to say good things now, I want to move on from that poor stoppage, but what defines him as a fighter is how tough he is. He has got world-class toughness. He's got a world-class chin. He's got a world-class gas tank at heavyweight. This guy can punch for days. He is throwing full force, relentlessly for periods of time. It's so impressive. And he's also got world-class bravery. This guy, as I said it before the fight, he constantly puts himself in danger to put you in danger. And there were so many times in this fight where Parker landed big shots on him. But because Wardley's instinct is hold your feet and throw back, or at least get to the ropes, let him come towards me, and I'm going to reconvene, I'm going to find counter shots. It's so impressive the way he goes about things. And this is something a lot of people don't understand about boxing. There are attributes that override good boxers. That can be elite level athleticism, elite level toughness, elite level power. I think Fabio Wardley has an elite ability in all of these areas, and it makes up for technical deficiencies. It makes them very, very difficult people to beat. And this guy is world class. Now, you guys might not like that. I'm not saying he's world class technically. There's definitely shortcomings technically. That's those things I've just defined for you. Fabio Wardley is a world class fighter. It's mad to say it. I don't think people thought he'd get to this point. But every time he gets in there with a better opponent, he's still able to win. Now, I've got to caveat all of this by saying that I do believe I was right when I said that Joseph Parker's run was exaggerated in the build up to this. People were saying he was on the best run in the heavyweight division. I believe he beat a series of commercially big names. Names that had a lot of kudos, that people said on paper, yeah, that's a fantastic win. But in reality, it kind of created an illusion as to where Joseph Parker was at in his career. The Wilder win, yes, we didn't know exactly what Wilder had going into that, but with hindsight, with the losses that Wilder's had since then, with the performances Wilder's had since then, the guy is shot to pieces. In the Zhang fight, he's a great boxer technically. He has bags of power, but he doesn't have a great punch output, and so Parker was able to outbox and maneuver his way through that fight, get through the rounds. And with Martin Bakole, the guy was 310 pounds. At 24 hours notice, he'd got off the couch and got in the ring with Joseph Parker. So I just think that Joseph Parker isn't in his prime anymore. We have to say that. I know he's only 33. I know he's only a couple of years older than Wardley, but your boxing age isn't the same as your biological age. It depends how many hard spars you've had, how many hard training camps you've had, how many hard fights you've had in the ring. And I do believe that Parker is coming towards the end of his career. He's not in his prime anymore. But you could argue that's true for a lot of the top 10. So contextually, even though Parker isn't the best Parker we've ever seen anymore, I still think that Fabio Wardley can be called a world-class heavyweight now. There aren't too many guys out there that I think would beat him. I honestly think that. He could get outboxed by all of them, but at some point, he's going to land that shot. And the dude is a hellacious puncher. Now, he gets compared to Wilder, which is an interesting one. I don't think he punches quite as hard as Wilder. I mean, Wilder's hit guys so hard that I wasn't sure if they were alive anymore. Wardley doesn't do that. But Wardley does have ridiculous power. I mean, breaking Fraser Clark's skull, getting the stoppage win over Parker tonight, really hurting Joseph Parker. The guy's got top level power. And I do think overall, he's a much better rounded boxer than Deontay Wilder was. I have to say that as well. I also just want to quickly say that Parker's gas tank was disappointing tonight. I think there is kudos to the opinion that he came in too heavy. I think he may have done. But at the same time, I may also just be where he's at in his career now. He maybe just hasn't got as much left as we thought. Also, I thought he looked vulnerable, and that could be Wardley's power, but it kind of reminded me of that Joe Joyce fight when he was getting hit. He was kind of staying hit. He didn't seem to bounce back and recover from those moments particularly well. And I guess the question is, where next for both men? I mean, Joseph Parker's got a hard road ahead of him. I'm not exactly sure where he goes or what he does. But one thing I will say about him, he shouldn't have any regrets taking this fight. In fact, no fighter should. Because this was the right decision. Whatever the outcome, this was the right decision. You can't be sitting around forever just waiting for the fight you want to come around. Look, I want the best fighters to fight the best. If Parker's not the best because he's lost to Wardley, so be it. You could say from a business perspective it wasn't the best move because he would have got a bigger fight potentially against an Usyk. But from a sporting perspective, this was absolutely the right decision and the right thing to do. So well done, Joseph Parker, for taking this fight. I'm pleased that he did. But where does he go now that he's lost, now that he's taken this defeat? I think the Dubois fight makes a hell of a lot of sense. If he can get in there with Daniel Dubois, there's a narrative there. They run that one back. I picked Dubois to beat him when that fight was first announced. I probably still would, but I think if you're Joseph Parker, that makes a lot of sense, that fight. And I think it's realistic as well. I think Frank Warren might well make that fight. For Fabio Wardley, he immediately called out Alexander Usyk after the final bell. When they're in the ring, the result's been announced. He said, Usyk. Do I think he should get Usyk next? I think Ajit Kabayel should get Usyk next. Really, I think that's who I think should be getting it. And he won't because he's not a big enough name. But of all the fights in the heavyweight division, that's what I want to see. After him, honestly, you've got to say that Wardley's not far down the queue. And when you look at his mandatory positions and whatnot now as well, actually, it might well get ordered. That might well be the next fight. I just don't know if it's big enough for Usyk. If he doesn't fight Usyk, if he doesn't get that fight, honestly, I don't think Tyson Fury is going to fight Anthony Joshua anytime soon. I think Joshua Wardley would be a brilliant fight for the UK. And I did a poll in my live stream after the fight, and most people voted for Wardley to beat Joshua. I think it was like a 65-35 split. Quite incredible when you think about where this guy's come from, how the narrative's flipped on him in just a couple of fights. But yeah, I think Wardley-Joshua would be an absolutely fantastic fight, maybe even Wardley-Fury. Wardley's got a hell of a lot of options now. I'm very happy for the guy, and fair play to him. But if I was his handlers, of course, you'd try and get that Usyk fight, and if not, get him in there with a British opponent. If Chisora wins fight number 50, perhaps that's an option for him as well. He can do whatever he wants, really, outside of that, undisputed fight. But look, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this fight in the comments section below. What would you like to see both men doing next? Final little thing is, if you want to talk boxing more outside of YouTube, we've got a Discord. There's a load of members. We've got a load of new members off the live stream today as well, which was great. So I'll put that in the pinned comment below so you can jump in there if you want. And there's lots of boxing coming up over the next few weeks, which is fantastic. So I look forward to seeing you for all the upcoming videos. And as I always say, guys, on to the next one.